Now, Nick Boles, a famously well-plugged-in former skills minister, has become a real player in the complex Brexit skirmishes in Parliament. But his advocacy for a so-called softer Brexit, keeping us in a customs union and close to the single market, has infuriated his local Conservative Party, which he has now, this weekend, left. And he joins me now for his first interview since that decision to quit. Nick Boles, were you pushed?
No, I mean, a certain amount of pressure was applied. They wanted me to tell them now, 3 years before the next election is due, whether I wanted to be their candidate in that election. And the party chairman made clear to me I didn't need to tell them, I didn't need to make a decision for a year or two, but I just concluded that our relationship had reached a point where there was no point pretending that we could patch things up, and that we'd better just actually part company in a, I hope, reasonably amicable way, and then they can go and select a candidate of more to their liking for the next election.
Reasonably amicable, but your Vice President, Martin Hill, says, "This is very disappointing for us all. We have once again been betrayed by our parliamentary representative. Talk to the man and woman on the street, and they're also quite angry that their MP seems to be going back on what he promised to do at the general election. He signed up to the manifesto about coming out of the single market and the customs union." And he's right, isn't he?
I signed up to the manifesto. I was in hospital at the time receiving chemotherapy, so I wasn't able to give it quite the attention perhaps that I should have done. But the truth is, I have voted for Theresa May's deal every time it has been offered, and I will vote for it again on Tuesday. The only thing, and in truth, the real area where I fell out with some members of my association, including Councillor Hill, was in my efforts to stop a no-deal Brexit. And obviously I was very much involved in this plan that reached its fruition last week to stop no-deal Brexit. Now, my view is that actually, as we're seeing this weekend, is going to make it more likely that Brexiters will vote for the Prime Minister's deal, and that we actually do get Brexit in the way that Councillor Hill and others would like.
And yet, an awful lot of your constituents who voted to leave the EU would be perfectly happy with a no-deal Brexit.
An awful lot might be, but I represent 100,000 people in Parliament. I have roughly 500 members of my local association and, roughly 60 people on my executive. I'm afraid I'm going to claim the right to interpret what is in the best interests of the 100,000 people I represent. And I'm not going to be bossed around by a very small number of people with very ideological views.
Are you still a Conservative MP?
I'm exactly the same kind of Conservative as I've always been, a progressive,
liberal,
liberal
the Tory
Conservative.
whip.
I've said that I'd like to go on taking the Conservative whip. I do think it's important when you stand for election on under a certain party's banner that you continue to do that, because that's ultimately what people vote for. They didn't vote for me. None of them had the first clue who I was. They voted for the Conservative Party, and I want to go on representing them. But I will be my own kind of Conservative, the one that I've always been, which is a progressive, liberal, modernising Conservative, not an ideological, reactionary Conservative.
Have you been told yet by the Tory authorities in Parliament you can stay as a Conservative, taking the Conservative whip?
Yes, I have.